Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Matter of the Heart. And we're always so glad that you take the time out to listen to heartfelt, enriching, educational, as much as possible, enlightening stories, so that you can walk away and that these stories will elevate your spirit. My name is Carol Olivia, and welcome to the show. Wondering listeners, I find this fascinating, actually. Do you ever go into a gemstone store and for some reason you're attracted to the color? And sometimes maybe you're not attracted to a color and you just walk away. And what happens if you pick up a gemstone? How does it feel to you? Do you feel its vibration? Do you feel its frequency? Do you feel its energy? And I'm curious, when you take it home, do you feel its healing ability? And then we've heard that you can also recharge, your gemstone to, I guess, and certainly Laurelle will, I guess we'll talk about that, to recharge it so that it maintains, I guess, the truest vibration of its own. Our guest for the Matter of the Heart is Laurelle Rethke. She is also called Stone Medicine Woman. She is vibrational healing therapist. She's a spiritual alchemist. She's a certified master of Christology. She's certified master of essential oils, certified in the Barbara Brennan School of Hands. I'm sure many of you have heard of that, of light healing and astrology. Fascinating. And the topic of the show is the colors of gemstones. Colors of gemstones and crystal healing. Welcome to the show, Laurelle.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Now, what is in back of you?
Crystals. Lots and lots of crystals of all different colors and varieties. I have, in a very small space here, I have a really diverse selection with some rarities as well as all of your everyday favorites.
And why is it, Laurelle, I'm curious, if I walk into a store, that I'm attracted to certain color?
Right. Well, we all tend to be attracted to certain colors over other colors, partially because of what's in our own energy field and what we're trying to bring in more fully into our energy field. And so following which color you're drawn to can be a great way to connect with stones in general.
So how do we know how it works, if that makes sense? How do we know how it heals? I mean, do certain stones affect certain organs or et cetera?
Yes. Yeah. So when I work with the stones and color, I am working with the chakra system using the rainbow bridge to consciousness. There are other people who work with classical Chinese medicine who will use stone colors based on the 5-element theory. But what's interesting is a lot of them work in tandem with each other. So these different modalities or ways of using the color all cross over each other a little bit. So, but I'll tell you the way that I work with them. If you're familiar with the 7 chakra system, or I use 9, but the 7 chakra system, which uses the colors of the rainbow, you'll be familiar with this, where the root chakra between the hips is red, the sacral chakra in the belly is orange, the solar plexus right at the base of the ribs in the center, that's yellow, green for the heart, blue for the throat, indigo for the third eye, and violet for the crown. And so the stones aren't always exactly the same colors as those chakras that we're used to, but they're very similar. And I additionally always use what I call the earth chakra, which is around 6 to 18 inches below the feet. This is really great for use when we're wanting to ground or connect to the earth plane. So I can go over the colors a little bit for you in regards to the stones, the stone colors versus the regular colors of the chakras. We're dealing with the earth chakra. It's going to be mainly dark browns and blacks and deep greens and oranges, sort of more of those colors of the earth. It's also going to be some of the metallics, because those metallics are really heavy and grounding, and putting them right below the feet is a great place to help you ground your energy. At the root chakra, it's pretty much reds and burgundies. At the belly or the sacral chakra, it's more of the oranges in general. At the solar plexus, yellows and golds. And then when we get to the heart, we're used to using pink and green at the heart, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But classically, it's green. At the throat, usually the stone colors are more of a light blue, and then the darker blues are usually at the third eye. But quite honestly, I use dark blues at the throat as much as light blues, and I use dark blue, indigo, purple at the third eye. And then the crown chakra is going to be clear or white or violet. If you can find a violet crystal, those are really great at the crown. Also, sort of those pastel colors in sort of the rainbow pastels are really nice up there as well. Sometimes light blues and light greens also really work to connect to the angelic realms. But that can even be placed about 12 inches above the head at what I like to call the spirit chakra.
So when we purchase a stone, Laurelle, what do we do with it for its maximum or the potential of receiving its most energy? I mean, do we hold it in a hand? Do we put it in the windowsill? Where are we placing it?
There's so many ways to use crystals. Certainly holding them in your hand, meditating with them is a great way, like we did on the last show. Carrying them in your pocket or wearing them as jewelry, which I have on a ruby necklace right now and ruby and amber earrings. So I'm using them that way at the moment. Some people will sleep with the stones. Some people create art with the stones and do grids to bring in healing. But placing the stone onto the body is a really wonderful way. A lot of times in my classes, I will have people meditate with the stones first so they can start to feel those energies, but sometimes they don't feel it in their hand. It's not until they place it on their body that they really start to feel the effects of the stones. It's just more palpable to them to have it against their skin or have it against their body. So using the stones in this way, placing them on the body in different areas is a great way to really more fully experience the energies present with the crystals.
And how do we know where to, let me show you what I have here. Somebody sent me the obsidian. How do we know where to place a stone?
Well,
like this
as always with crystals, following what feels right is most important. Okay. When I talk about colors with the stones, it's only a guide, right? It's a guide to help you if you're not sure where to place it, you're just getting started and you're trying to figure out what feels right where. You can use the colors as a guide. So those colors I gave you earlier that sort of match the chakra colors, that's a great way to start, because if you're working on a root chakra issue, then most likely a red stone is going to be really good at the root chakra. But I have a little tip that can help as well. Sometimes, for instance, we have something going on in our belly and it doesn't quite feel too good. It feels overactivated there. So if instead of putting an orange stone on, which will activate it, we would use the opposite color stone. So for instance, if you think about the reds, the oranges, and the yellows, these are all warming colors. And then you think about the greens, the blues, the indigos, these are all cooling colors. So if you want to cool down your belly, you can use the opposite color, which is blue. Now there's a little trick I have that's easy to remember this. The opposite color of each of the chakras is the opposite. If you think of it as the root chakra, the sacral chakra, and the solar plexus as those lower chakras, and the heart, the throat, and the third eye as the upper chakras in the physical body, then it would be the opposite of that. So if you're using a root stone, right, but you want to activate the heart, then you can take that red root stone and use it at the lowest upper chakra. So the lowest lower chakra and the lowest upper chakra are opposite colors. And it makes a lot of sense when it comes to red and green because, well, we're used to using pink at the heart, right? And so pink is more of a warming color. It's got a little bit of white in it, but basically it's a red. So we'll easily remember to use the red at the heart, but using the green at the root also is that deep green color that really helps connect you to the earth and connect you down into the earth's energy. So using green at the root chakra can calm us down in the root and connect us more deeply to the earth, whereas using red at the heart can warm up the heart chakra, get it moving, get it pumping. And so there's certain times when people have certain ailments, for instance, where they need more energy at the heart, using a red stone at the heart or a pink stone at the heart can help that move along. And then just going on, the sacral, which is orange, and I'm sorry, my lower chakras are a little out of range here for you, but if you're at the belly, normally using orange, you just use the middle chakra of the uppers, right? So the middle lower and the middle upper are opposites. So orange to blue. So a lot of times I will use a blue calcite. Let's see. Where do I have a blue calcite? One moment. A lot of times I'll use a blue calcite stone more in this sacral region, right at the belly, right? To calm and soothe anything going on in that area. And then if I want to have more of a voice, let's say, I'll use an orange stone, which I would typically use at the belly. I'll use it at the throat. And actually, I'm holding a piece of carnelian right now. And carnelian is, one of the nicknames for carnelian is the actor stone. And that's because it nurtures and heats up that sacral chakra, but it also takes that creativity and gives it a voice so that we can speak more easily and surely, all right? And then the last two chakra opposites are the third eye and the solar plexus. So normally we use a purple or a dark blue stone at the third eye, and we use a yellow stone at the solar plexus. So if you want to really get your mind moving and thinking or trying to bring in more clarity, a lot of times a yellow stone at the third eye is very effective. And if your solar plexus is overworked, you've really been having to stand up for yourself a lot lately, or you're just tired and need some healing in this area, a purple stone can calm and soothe that chakra. So this is one of the things I teach in my crystal healing classes, is that it's not only using the color of the chakra, but it's using the opposite color. And if you just know that, it goes a long way to really helping you decide what color stone to use at each chakra.
Fascinating. I know I had a friend who visited you and she had a wonderful healing with you.
Yeah.
Laurelle listeners is in New York City. I know this is a worldwide podcast, but if you do live in New York City, I would highly, highly recommend visiting Laurelle's beautiful studio. How can we recharge? We buy a stone. Does that vibration last so-called forever with that, whatever word that means, whatever the meaning of that is? But how do we know when to recharge it?
It's just something that once you work with stones for a while, you know. And if you're not sure yet, there's no harm in cleansing and recharging a stone. Sometimes we just need to do it for our own peace of mind, even if the stone doesn't need it. I would say if you're a crystal healer, you're going to be cleansing and recharging your stones after every session. But if you are a casual user or someone new to using stones, once a week is generally good enough. I mean, some people will even go up to a month without cleansing or charging their stones. But it's really simple and easy to do. Usually, all the ways that we can cleanse the stones will also recharge the stones on their own. In certain modalities, they have very specific ways for recharging each particular stone. But when we're working with them with intention and energy. A simple saging can really help. Another easy way to cleanse stones is using selenite. I don't know if you can see this. It might be too bright for you to really see it, but selenite is a great stone to use. This might be a little bit easier. A great stone to use to recharge and cleanse your other crystals. You can just place your crystals on top of or around the selenite, and it will cleanse and recharge all of them in a fairly short amount of time. I'd say basically if you have a stone on the selenite for 24 hours, it's usually cleansed. Sometimes it only takes, sometimes it could be on contact almost, and other times it can take up to 24 hours. So it's a great way though to really start opening to the subtle energies of stones. This is actually how I started opening to the subtle energies, when I couldn't quite feel the stones yet, and I thought, oh, I'm not picking up the energy, which I actually was. When we're drawn to crystals, we're already picking up the energy, but I couldn't quite feel it yet. I couldn't understand it. So I would put stones onto the selenite, and then I'd check in. I'd put them there and I'd say, okay, are you clean yet? Well, I can't tell yet, so I guess I'm gonna leave you there. And I come back an hour or so later and I check in, are you clean yet? And it's just sort of me checking in energetically with the stones to see how it felt to me. And after, I guess, maybe an hour or two, I finally felt like, oh, you know what? I think this one does feel clean. So I'm just going to go with that for now. But the other two I wasn't quite as sure about, so I gave it a little bit longer. And I think the first time I did it, I left one of the stones on for 2 days and I still couldn't tell. And I was finally like, you know what? I'm just going to have to trust. I'm going to have to trust that it's clean for now. And so that's really how I started really opening to the subtle energies of stones and being able to feel and intuit what was happening with them. So selenite, a great tool. You can also use, a lot of people will use quartz clusters if you don't have selenite. Anytime you have a cluster of stones, let me grab one of those. Oh, here's one.
And for you listeners who cannot see this, because this is also on Facebook, will be on Facebook Live. The studio is, I don't know how many gemstones she has, but she's surrounded by it.
Thousands.
So that energy, thousands, is in that space. And I know somebody who visited Laurelle, and she just almost flipped out with the energy.
Well, see, this is a quartz cluster, and this is an amethyst cluster. I'm going to use the amethyst because if you are watching on video, it's a little easier to see color-wise. But anytime you have all these points growing up, each one of these quartz points, it takes a lot of energy for that point to grow. And so you can put a crystal on to the points to cleanse and clear a stone that way as well. And it's the same thing. You just check in, and when it feels like it's clean, then that's when it is clean. And it just takes a little time to get that nuance down of what feels clean. But in general, I like to say, you know, if you sage the stones with the intention of cleansing and clearing their energies and helping them to recharge, then so it is done. Because where intention goes, energy flows. So if you're intending to cleanse the crystals, then that is then it's being done. A lot of people also will use water. They'll take crystals. I mean, they can get a little dusty, and they'll rinse them under a little bit of water. Just make sure if you do that, that it's not a stone that's going to melt in the water. Like selenite, you don't want to leave in water for very long. You can rinse it really quickly and it'll be okay, but just make sure you dry it off. But all of the quartzes and most of the harder stones, you can rinse under water, just not the porous stones or the metallic stones.
Now, can you tell if I walked into your space what type of stone that person would need?
Sometimes, yes. I do when people ask me specifically what stone do I feel is best for a certain situation, I often have crystals go through my mind's eye. Like the picture of a crystal will show up. And I never say, because to me, part of the magic of working with stones is really feeling what feels right to you. So I will tell them, pick a few stones that feel right to you. And then we can talk about it afterwards. And you can decide from what I tell you about each of the stones, which one you really feel right with. Because at the end of the day, there's going to be 1, 2, or 3 stones generally that you realize, even if you're attracted to all of them, which a lot of people are, there's going to be a few stones that you're like, I can't leave without this stone. And there's a reason. There's a connection that's happening between you and that particular stone that is more magical than what anyone can tell you. Now, I have to say, a lot of times, someone will pick at least one of the stones that went through my head. So I have a pretty good track record with it. And if someone really is at a loss, I will certainly help them in that way. But no one, in my opinion, no one knows what you need better than you. Right. And you taking that time to really connect with the stones and feel it out for yourself, even if it's a little uncomfortable to begin with, is going to bring you the deepest experience. And it's going to bring you the stone that is really, really right for you, not coming through someone else's filter. I may be really well-intentioned, but someone could be saying, oh, I have this heart chakra issue that's going on. I need a stone for that. But really, it's something that's going on in the root chakra or the solar plexus that needs to be addressed more than just the heart chakra. And so I always find it's more powerful for people to pick their own stones, and then we can figure it out. If you're talking to a crystal healing therapist or someone who knows a lot about the stones and how they work for healing, then it's great to have that guidance. And that's a large part of what I do here in my small shop in New York City is a lot of crystal guidance and helping people to more fully connect for themselves.
So is it more on an emotional plane rather than a physical?
No, I mean, the thing with crystals is it's a holistic approach. They
Right.
all work on all levels. A lot of them are going to be helping more for the physical at certain times, or the emotional or the mental at other times, but they all work on all of the subtle bodies. So some of the stones, the ones that aren't transparent or translucent, a lot of times the stones are really better for the physical or the emotional body. And then the crystals in general are better for, the crystals that have a little transparency to them can be better for the emotional or, the mental or physical planes. But they all work on all of the subtle bodies. Some of them are a little more, attuned to a certain area. Like I like to say, fluorite is great for healing the physical body. It's great for soothing the emotions, but a large part of what it does is balance the brain and reorganize the way we think about things, which then calm the body and help calm the emotions and help the body come into its own physical healing. Similarly, let's see. Tourmaline is really great for emotional healing. It's not that it doesn't cleanse and clear all of the energy bodies. It certainly does. It sort of clears and cleanses them and helps them to connect with each other in a very holistic way. But it's a great emotional healer. And so that's sort of the focus of how I see tourmaline in general is really working on cleansing, clearing, strengthening the whole field, but then really coming in and helping with emotional healing, especially in the colors.
Fascinating. I can't help but think to myself, Laurelle, you have such a passion for this. Was there some type of a sign, synchronicity, that led you? I mean, there had to be something.
it's funny, I was an actor and singer and dancer for a long time, and I loved that career, but I had burnt out, and I knew I wanted to go into my metaphysical studies more fully, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was looking into herbs, which is how the essential oils happened, but I was a little overwhelmed by how many there were. And when I came across crystals, for some reason, I thought there were only 30 or 40. And while, if you know 50 stones, you have a good understanding of crystals. But there are 5,000 minerals in
Wow.
the world today.
Wow.
And more minerals are being created. There's sort of a mineral evolution that happens. And so more minerals are being created on a somewhat regular basis. But I probably work with about 250 stones. And but because I wasn't overwhelmed at the idea of how much there was to learn initially, it just felt right to me. And the sign was that I was at the New Life Expo, still trying to figure out what it was I really wanted to do. And I was walking along with a friend, and every time we got to a crystal table, I'd say, can you hold on just a minute? I just want to look at all the stones on the table. And I would sit and I would look at every single stone on the table, like taking in all of the energy of each one of those stones. And after I devoured all of the energy of each one of the stones on that table, I'd pop up and go back and start talking to my friend again. And we continue on until another crystal table happened. And I was like, hold on again. So that was sort of the sign. I was like, I think there's something here. And yet I didn't think I felt the energy of the stones, but I was so drawn to them. And now I realize I was picking up a lot of information through my eyes. You know, we live in a visual world. I was a singer and a dancer growing up. I was used to looking at myself in the mirror and picking up information that way. And I think a lot of people today are used to that visual stimulus and picking up information and energy that way. And so I think a lot of us are really visually drawn to them. And then we get a little confused when we come across a rock that's not really pretty, but we're so drawn to. That's when we start really starting to understand how it's more than just the visual, that our eyes are picking up energy and information in that way as well.
So the eyes are picking up, and the body and whatever you want, the spirit is picking up the spirit, I guess, of the stone. And so it's at that moment, I guess, like a bond, spiritual bond for that person to be with. Now,
Yeah.
I'm also thinking, Laurelle, that as we change in life, I'm sure that we will be attracted to different stones.
Yes. It's funny, sometimes someone will come through and say, I bought this stone like a month ago. I worked with it for a week and I haven't picked it up again. And I'm like, well, that sometimes happens. You needed that stone that week. It was really important for you that week. It's not that you won't pick it up again in the future, but sometimes we're really connected to a stone for a week or a month or a year, and then we don't work with it again for a week or a month or a year. And then we'll come back around, circle back around. Or there's certain stones that we pick up and we've never had them leave our side. I've had amethyst with me since my freshman year in college. It's been a touchstone and a constant for me. It's not that I use it every day or every week or every year even necessarily, but it's always around me. It's always in my energy field in some way. I've never not had an amethyst. And so it's like that constant touchstone for me. But I went through probably a year-long period where I was working with vanadinite almost every day. And I really, really loved this stone. I still loved the stone, but I work with it in so much more rarely now than I used to. I'm hoping you can see this crystal. It's a beautiful orange color. I really needed it at the time to be grounded while I was learning about the stone so I didn't float away. It's really about strength and determination and work ethic. And I was working a lot when I was learning about the stones, and it just really drew me. And I worked religiously with it. I mean, every piece of vanadinite I brought in, I held on to, which were a lot of pieces, for at least a year, maybe two, before I was ready to start letting some of them go into the shop, because it was really important for me that year. And it's funny, I've been feeling it come back around a little bit lately. So, maybe I guess that would be maybe 10 or 12 years ago that happened. Actually, probably more like 12 or 14 years ago that happened. But I've been feeling it come back in again, really wanting and needing that grounding, that strength, that determination aspect that vanadinite has. So we go through shifts. Each stone works differently with each person. Each stone has its own particular formation and way that it came in, different trace minerals in it sometimes, or different amounts of trace minerals, or the growth pattern, the shape that it's taken. And each one of those stones works differently with each one of us, because we're all sort of different shapes and sizes and have different energies going on. And sometimes we'll work with a stone and we'll really bring that energy into our field. And it's so much a part of us now that we don't need to continue working with it. It's time to move on to another stone that will bring you that next step. But doesn't mean you won't come back to it. And it doesn't mean you won't find another piece that's a little bit different in its expression that's going to speak to you at another time.
It's beautiful. I mean, you have such information on this, Laurelle. And you're so passionate about it. It really feels as if it's so much a part of you, who you are, your own self-identity. You probably dream about it. I mean, it's
sometimes.
Right? You're 24 hours. Unbelievable. I highly recommend listeners, if you live in New York City, to visit unbelievable studio that Laurelle Rethke has in Manhattan. It's really unbelievable, Laurelle.
And even if you're not in New York City, I don't ship crystals out. I only do the crystals here. But right. I do long distance crystal healing and energy healing as well, and some sound sometimes. And so I can even do a crystal grid for you long distance if that's something you're interested in.
And I know you're coming out with a book several months from now, and we'll all look forward.
Almost a year. In about a year.
In a year. Okay. Well, this has been fascinating, Miss Laurelle Rethke. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you.
It's a pleasure to speak to you and your audience always.
Oh, thanks, Laurelle. Thank you. You've been listening to The Matter of the Heart. We have really learned A to Z, again, about crystals, and crystal healing, and what to choose and what not to choose. Not so much a real negative person. It's just what our spirit is calling us for. I guess it's like the voice of the gemstone or the crystal that calls us, showing that there is an energy for that is probably not explainable in words, the mystery of the unknown. Thank you all for listening to The Matter of the Heart. I've been your host, Carol Olivia. Thank you. Thanks, Laurelle.
Thank you.